My ex lied about her cancer while I paid all her bills, so I ghosted completely. What happened next shattered her perfect life beyond repair. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and when I met Jenna, I was at one of the lowest points of my life. My long-term relationship had just ended. My career felt stagnant, and I was honestly starting to believe that maybe I wasn't meant to find real love. Then she appeared, this bright, magnetic woman who seemed to understand me without needing explanations. The first time we talked, it felt like someone had finally tuned into the same emotional frequency I'd been broadcasting for years. I heard Jenna had this warmth that felt like home. She laughed easily, asked deep questions, and listened with full attention, like every word I said mattered. We started spending entire weekends together, cooking, watching old movies, taking long drives at night just to talk about everything and nothing. I'd look at her and think, this is what peace feels like. One night, while we were lying on her couch under a dim lamp, she opened up about her past. "I've just had such bad luck with my health," she said softly, fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. "And I've always needed stability. It's hard to find that with people who don't stick around." I remember holding her hand, promising I wasn't like those people. In that moment, it felt like I was stepping into the role of her protector, the person who'd finally stay. I didn't know it then, but that was the first move in a game I didn't even realize I was playing. She had planted the seed perfectly, vulnerability disguised as trust, and I was already too emotionally hooked to see it for what it really was. I thought I had found the kindest woman I'd ever meet, but soon her bad luck would become the most expensive thing that ever happened to me. Before I knew it, helping Jenna became my entire routine. Every morning, I'd text to check if she'd eaten. On my lunch breaks, I'd call the pharmacy or transfer money for her treatments. My paycheck, what little was left after rent, went straight into keeping her comfortable. She'd send me photos of hospital wristbands, vague appointment summaries, even chemo schedules. I never questioned them. Why would I? She was sick. She needed me at first. She tried to resist the help, or at least she made it look that way. "You're already doing too much," she'd whisper, voice shaking. "I don't deserve someone like you." But the moment I offered to handle another bill, she'd exhale in relief, like she'd been waiting for me to insist. Every time I suggested bringing her to a hospital myself, she'd pull back. "It's too hard for me emotionally," she'd say. "I don't want you to see me like that." Just like that, the conversation would end with her crying and me apologizing. My friends started noticing the toll. "Man, you look drained," my coworker Mark told me one afternoon. "You're paying all her bills? You sure that's a good idea?" I got defensive. "She has cancer, Mark," I snapped. "You'd do the same if it was someone you loved." But deep down, his words lingered. I was working overtime, missing sleep, and my savings had nearly vanished. Still, every time doubt crept in, Jenna's voice erased it. "You're the only one who hasn't abandoned me," she'd say, tears glistening. "You're all I have." Those words dug deep. She had wrapped her sickness around my empathy, and it worked like a leash. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that love meant sacrifice. But every night, as I watched my balance drop lower and lower, a quiet thought whispered at the back of my mind, why does helping her always feel like drowning? And then, one day, a small inconsistency in her story would make that whisper impossible to ignore. It started small, so small, I almost ignored it. Jenna mentioned she was being treated at St. Mary's Hospital. A week later, while sorting through her mail, I noticed a bill from a completely different clinic. When I asked about it, she froze for half a second, then laughed it off. "Oh, that's just an old account. I transferred hospitals," she said, brushing it away like it was nothing. The answer fit just enough to make sense. Still, something inside me itched. The next inconsistency came a few days later. She told me she had a chemo appointment on Thursday, but when I offered to drive her, she panicked. No, she said, voice rising. "It's not that kind of session. They do this one privately for emotional comfort." "It's complicated." I remember staring at her, trying to make sense of what emotional chemo meant. She just smiled tightly and changed the subject. A week later, while she was in the shower, her purse tipped over. A small orange bottle rolled out anxiety medication, not chemotherapy drugs. My chest tightened. When I confronted her later, she didn't miss a beat. "Their first side effects," she said, almost rehearsed. "Anxiety from treatment." Then she grabbed my hand, eyes glassy. "Please don't make me explain everything. It's humiliating enough." That night, I couldn't sleep. The documents, the evasive answers, the strange schedule, none of it added up. My brain kept bouncing between guilt and suspicion, between love and logic. Every time I thought of asking more questions, I saw her fragile expression, that trembling lower lip, and guilt always won. But deep down, something fundamental had shifted. I no longer felt like her partner. I felt like her caretaker, her wallet, her emotional punching bag. Still, I stayed. Because I told myself maybe I was the problem. Maybe I just didn't understand what real illness looked like. But the truth was about to spill out in the most unexpected way possible. One tagged photo that would destroy everything I thought I knew. It happened on a random Tuesday night. I was half asleep on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I saw a familiar face pop up on my feed. A mutual friend had posted a group photo, Jenna, grinning ear to ear, dressed in a glittering black dress, drink in hand, surrounded by friends at some rooftop party. The caption read, "Best night ever." So good to see everyone happy and healthy again. Healthy. That word hit me like a punch. The timestamp on the post said it was from the same evening she'd told me she was too weak from chemo to see me. My stomach turned cold. I stared at the photo for minutes, zooming in, looking for anything. Maybe it was old. Maybe it wasn't real. But the comments said otherwise. "You look amazing tonight. Didn't think you'd come out after that spa trip?" Spa trip. I felt my pulse in my throat. My first instinct was to call her, but I stopped. Something told me to stay quiet. So instead, I started digging. I went through her tagged photos, her followers, even her old posts. There were more inconsistencies, vacations I'd never heard of. Dinners she said she was too sick to attend. Outfits she supposedly couldn't afford. My chest was tight, my breath shallow. I wanted to believe there was an explanation. But when I clicked on a story highlight labeled recovery, it was just clips of her at bars, brunches, beaches, laughing, drinking, living. The girl I'd been taking care of. The one who said she was dying looked like she was thriving that night. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying every sick day, every tear, every "I love you" for staying. And by sunrise, one thing was clear. I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not until I had proof. If she was lying, I was going to make sure she couldn't talk her way out of it. And to do that, I'd have to play along, like I still believed every word. The next morning, I looked at Jenna with new eyes. Every expression, every word, every sigh suddenly felt rehearsed. But I kept my face neutral, pretending nothing had changed. When she texted, "Feeling too weak to go out today," I replied, "That's okay, rest up. I'll drop off soup later." I smiled at her, cooked for her, transferred money, the perfect devoted boyfriend. Inside, though, every move I made had a purpose. I started keeping records, screenshots of her messages, timestamps of her supposed treatments, every payment I sent. I even saved her hospital emails. Something about them felt off. The signatures, the formatting, the weird phrasing. I Googled the doctor's name she'd mentioned. Nothing. No listing, no license. Just silence. That week, she brought up a new experimental treatment that wasn't covered by insurance. "It's my last shot," she said, voice trembling. "If I can't do this, I don't know if I'll survive." I stared at her for a moment, pretending to think it over. "How much do you need?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, almost surprised by how easy it was. 5,000, she whispered. That number sealed it. It wasn't just manipulation anymore, it was a scam, so I transferred the money. But this time I traced it. I watched as it hit her account, then moved instantly into another under her name. A few hours later, her location pinged at a spa resort, the same one mentioned in that Instagram caption. I felt my last thread of love snap. Everything she'd said, every tear she'd cried, it was all calculated. And now I had proof. But I didn't confront her, not yet. She still thought I was hooked, still believed she owned my sympathy, and that was going to be her biggest mistake. Because before I ended things, I was going to let her show just how far she'd take her lies, how deep her greed would go. The next few weeks felt like watching my own life crumble in slow motion. My savings account hit zero. My credit cards were maxed out. Rent was overdue. I'd been covering her treatments, her groceries, her rent, and now I couldn't even afford my own. When I told Jenna I was struggling, she looked at me with this fake sympathy that made my stomach turn. "Oh, babe," she sighed, brushing my cheek. "You shouldn't stress yourself. Money comes and goes. Love doesn't." It sounded comforting on the surface, but underneath it felt like mockery. I wanted to scream that I had nothing left because of her. Instead, I nodded like an idiot and told her I'd figure it out. A few days later, she went silent. No replies, no calls, nothing. I panicked. I thought maybe her health had worsened. I drove to her apartment. Lights off, blinds drawn. Then I remembered the location tracker we'd set up months ago for safety. My chest tightened when I opened it. She wasn't at any hospital. She was at a luxury resort, the same one she'd visited before. I called. Straight to voicemail. Texted. No reply. Then, hours later, she finally messaged, "Sorry, babe. I needed a mental health break. I'll explain later." That's when everything broke inside me. All the guilt, all the sympathy, all the love I'd been weaponized with, it flipped into disgust. I realized she'd never been sick. She'd never been honest. She'd drained me dry and left me to rot while she sipped cocktails under palm trees. That night, I sat in my dark apartment, surrounded by overdue bills and empty beer cans, staring at her texts. I'd hit rock bottom, emotionally, financially, spiritually. But rock bottom has a strange gift. It strips you down until there's nothing left to lose. And once you've got nothing left, revenge stops being about anger. It becomes about balance. And I was ready to even the scales. The morning after I found out about the resort, something inside me finally went cold. I didn't yell, didn't text, didn't even confront her. I just stopped. I deleted her number, blocked her on everything: phone, email, Instagram, even Venmo. I knew that if I gave her one more chance to talk, she'd find a way to twist it. She always did. So I disappeared completely. For the first few days, the silence was bliss. No emotional manipulation, no guilt-ridden calls, just quiet. But then the messages started coming through from new numbers. "Jenna. Hey, my chemo got moved up. Can you please call me?" Jenna again. "You're abandoning me when I'm sick? What kind of person is that?" "Jenna, I'm scared. Please don't do this." I didn't respond. Not once. Each message made my chest tighten and my hands shake, but I reminded myself she wasn't sick. She was addicted to control. Then the anger started bleeding through her texts. "So that's it? You're done with me? After everything I went through for you? I'll tell everyone you used me. You'll regret this." I blocked each new number she tried. After a week, she sent an email with the subject line, "You're heartless." Inside, she attached a picture of herself crying. I didn't open it. I just hit delete. And for the first time in months, I slept soundly. It was strange ghosting her. Didn't feel like revenge. It felt like freedom. Every message left unanswered was a piece of myself I took back. Still, I couldn't shake the curiosity. What would she do now that her favorite source of sympathy and money had vanished? It wouldn't take long to find out, because within weeks, her lies would start unraveling in ways I never could have planned. It started as a whisper in her social circle, but within days it became a full-blown storm. One of Jenna's friends, a girl named Chloe, reached out to me through a mutual acquaintance. Her message was short but sharp. "Hey, did Jenna really have cancer? Because something isn't adding up." I didn't respond at first, but curiosity won. I asked what she meant, and Chloe unloaded everything. How Jenna had been borrowing money from multiple people for her treatments, how she'd claimed to different friends that each of them was her only support. Someone. Had seen her Instagram posts too and started connecting dots. The hospital visits were actually spa check-ins. The surgery recoveries were vacations. And the stories weren't even consistent. Then, someone, I still don't know who, leaked screenshots of her messages asking multiple exes for money, all using the same phrases she used on me. You're the only one who hasn't abandoned me. If you loved me, you'd help me fight. It went viral in her circle fast. Her name was everywhere, whispered with disgust. By the end of the week, her reputation was in flames. Friends cut contact. Her family stopped posting about her altogether. Even people she'd manipulated for sympathy started turning on her publicly. I watched it all unfold from a distance. I didn't gloat, didn't add fuel, just observed as her world collapsed under the weight of her own lies. The girl who'd weaponized empathy was now being devoured by truth. One night, out of curiosity, I checked her profile. The bio that once read fighter, survivor, dreamer was gone, replaced with nothing but a blank space. It should have felt triumphant, but instead, it felt quiet. Like watching a storm you'd already survived destroy someone else's house, and just when I thought it was finally over, she showed up again, in person, on my doorstep. With tears in her eyes and a brand new story to tell, it was late, almost midnight, when I heard the knock. At first I thought it was a neighbor, but when I opened the door, there she was. Jenna. Same soft eyes. Same trembling lips. Only this time, the desperation wasn't an act. She looked pale, hollow, like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Please," she whispered, voice cracking. "Can I come in?" Every instinct screamed no, but I stepped aside anyway. She walked in slowly, eyes darting around my apartment like she was revisiting a crime scene. "You won't answer my calls," she said, sitting on the edge of the couch. "You don't understand. I messed up. I wasn't trying to hurt you. It's just—" I cut her off. "You weren't trying to hurt me?" My voice came out calm to calm. "You lied about having cancer, Jenna. You drained me dry while posting beach photos. You don't get to stand here and play the victim." She started crying real, messy sobs. "I have a disorder," she said between tears. "It's psychological. I just needed help. I didn't know how to ask without making people leave." I took a folder from my coffee table and placed it beside her. "These," I said, "are your lies. Screenshots, bank transfers, photos from those trips, everything." She went silent, staring at the stack of papers like it was radioactive. "Why did you save all this?" She whispered. "Because I wanted to remember what manipulation looks like," I said. "So I'll never fall for it again." Her face drained of color. "You can't ruin me with this," she hissed suddenly. "You'll look bitter, crazy." I smiled for the first time in months. "I don't need to ruin you, Jenna. You already did that yourself." She stood there for a moment, shaking, speechless, then grabbed her bag and left without another word. But I didn't realize it yet. Her downfall had only just begun, and karma was about to finish what I started. After that night, I thought I'd never see or hear from Jenna again. But word travels fast, and the universe, it seemed, wasn't done with her yet. Within 2 weeks, one of my coworkers sent me a link, a public post on Facebook from someone who used to work with her. The caption read, "Never thought I'd see someone fake cancer for cash." Attached were screenshots, the same evidence I'd shown her, somehow leaked and spreading like wildfire. The comment section was brutal. Former friends, coworkers, even relatives chimed in. Some defended her at first, saying it couldn't be true. But then others began dropping receipts, Cash App screenshots, texts, photos, even voice messages. Her whole scam unraveled thread by thread, in front of everyone. A week later, I learned she'd been fired. Her employer found out she'd used medical leave for fake hospital stays. They cited moral misconduct. Her family stopped defending her publicly. The girl who'd thrived on sympathy now had none left to give or receive. I saw her once more by accident. She was standing outside a cafe, hair a mess, phone in hand, pleading with someone. Her voice carried just enough for me to catch fragments. "Please, I just need a place to stay. No, I can't go home." For a second, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered every sleepless night, every overdraft notice, every time she weaponized her tears. And that pity dissolved into something colder. Closure. I walked past her without saying a word. She looked up, met my eyes for half a second, and froze. No anger, no apology, just shame. Like she finally saw herself the way I'd come to see her. But even after everything, I wasn't interested in revenge anymore. What I did next wasn't about payback. It was about peace. And for the first time, it would be entirely for me. In the weeks that followed, the noise died down. The posts about Jenna stopped. The group chats moved on to other gossip, and her name slowly faded into silence. But I didn't feel empty. I felt free. My phone was quiet, my bank account no longer bleeding. For the first time in months, I could breathe without guilt. I started rebuilding from scratch. Picked up extra freelance work, paid off debts little by little, and cut every toxic tie I hadn't realized was draining me. Nights that used to be filled with panic calls from Jenna were now spent walking under streetlights, listening to music, and actually enjoying the quiet. I didn't realize how peaceful solitude could feel until I'd escaped someone who thrived on chaos. Sometimes, though, I'd catch myself thinking back to that first night we met, how genuine she'd seemed. How much I'd wanted to believe in her. I used to blame myself for being gullible. But now I know empathy isn't weakness. It's just dangerous in the wrong hands. She didn't break me. She exposed the part of me that needed fixing. One night, on impulse, I donated a small amount to a verified cancer charity. I wrote in the notes section, "For those actually fighting the fight, she only pretended to. It wasn't revenge, it was reclamation." A way to close that chapter with something real. Looking back, I realized she never had power over me. I gave it to her. And taking it back wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, peaceful. I never reached out to her again. Never needed to. Because in the end, I didn't need to destroy her life. She'd done that herself. All I had to do was walk away, and this time, never look back.